Welcome to this introduction to financial modelling. In this session, we will cover what is a financial model, what are the uses of financial models, what do different model structures look like, and how to use Excel efficiently. We'll look at Excel options, keyboard shortcuts, and tips for formula writing. So what is a financial model? A financial model is a tool that we use to forecast a company's key financial statements into the future. And it's typically for a period of 5 to 10 years. We build it in an Excel file which will contain separate areas for the financial statements themselves, the forecast assumptions, the workings, and the analysis. The assumptions are typically growth rates and margins, and the analysis section will look at forecast trends in key financial ratios, and that also provides a reasonableness check on the assumptions that we've used. Once the forecast model is complete, we can add in extra analysis sections such as discounted cash flow analysis. Let's look at uses of financial models next. There are many different uses. Forecasting, budgeting, valuation, restructuring, credit analysis, and also investment decisions. Models can be structured differently. The two classic styles are tower style, where all information is on one spreadsheet, or book style, also known as matrix style, where each financial statement and other sections of the model have a separate spreadsheet. Here's an example of a book style model. You can see, if you look at the tabs at the bottom, that each section of the model is on a different worksheet. In this book style model, you can see we have an introduction sheet, a control sheet, income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, calculations, a debt working sheet, and a ratios calculation sheet. Each section of the model is on a different worksheet in the file. Now let's look at how to use Excel efficiently. We'll begin by looking up how best to set up Excel for efficient modelling. Before you start modelling, it is helpful to adjust some of the default Excel options, and you'll find those within File, Excel Options. Let's look at how to change the settings in Excel. We need to access the File tab on the ribbon. To do that with the keyboard, you can hit the Alt key. We can then type the letter F, which has now been activated. From there, we need to activate Options, so the letter T. And then we have our first page, the General section of the options. Within here, I would recommend turning off the Show Mini toolbar on selection and turning off the Enable Live Preview. To turn selections on and off, you can click them with a mouse, or you can tab to the relevant box, press the space bar to tick and untick, or you can see that each option has a single underlined letter. If you type Alt and the underlined letter, here I'm typing Alt M, that too ticks and unticks that option. We turn off Show Mini Toolbar and Enable Live Preview because they're memory intensive, so you can just work a bit quicker in Excel if they're turned off. That's everything in the General tab. I can Alt tab to go back to General, and then using the arrow keys down to Formula Next. In here, Enable iterative calculations should always be turned off at the beginning of the modelling process. Alt-I will tick and untick that one. The reasons behind why that needs to be turned off will be explained later. I would also recommend within formulas that you turn off the Enable Background Error Checking. Excel does have tools for checking errors as you're working, but they don't always match with what we need for building a model. It's better to turn off Excel's error checking and perform our own checks, as we'll see later. Next, down to the advanced section. In here, I recommend unticking the after pressing enter move selection down. When we're modelling, more often than not, we're working across a row rather than down a column. And this is the option that automatically ensures that when you press enter, the cell selection drops down a row. So it's useful to take it off. The next useful one to check is allow editing directly in cells. We make sure that that one is off. It's a minor change, but it means that as you're typing in a formula to the cell, the letters or numbers that you're typing appear in the formula bar rather than on the spreadsheet. It can be clearer to read them like that. Next, extend data range formats and formulas. Also recommended that we turn that one off, as we don't necessarily want formats to automatically be applied to adjacent cells. Finally, enable autocomplete for cell values. Make sure that one is off. This just ensures that Excel doesn't try to guess words as you're typing them in, which is not especially useful when you're building a model. That's everything in Excel options. Once you've made all desired changes, you can hit Tab until the OK button is activated. It will turn blue, and press Enter. Here's a reminder of some of the key changes that I showed you within Excel options for formulas and advanced. I also showed you how to access the Excel ribbon using keyboard shortcuts rather than using the mouse. Using keyboard shortcuts makes you work faster and more efficiently. So, to access the commands on the ribbon, I pressed the Alt key. That then showed a highlighted number or letter against each of the various tabs. You then press the letter on the keyboard, matching to the section of the ribbon that you want, and then continue matching the letter on the toolbar buttons until you've accessed the tool that you want. You may have noticed at the top of my Excel screen I had a quick access toolbar. This is a small customizable toolbar where you can put all of your favorite commands. To make changes to it, there are two ways of doing it. You can go via Excel options, quick access toolbar, or directly on the ribbon, you could right click any button and then select the Add to Quick Access toolbar. Useful buttons to place on the toolbar are increase or decrease decimal, and then fill color and font color. Let's look at adding or removing buttons to the Quick Access toolbar. You can see my Quick Access toolbar up in the top left-hand corner here. Well, there are two ways to access it. So one is via File Options, Alt F-T, and I can arrow down to the Quick Access toolbar, and from here you can see I can choose which commands I want and then pop them over onto the quick access toolbar. For example, I could pick the borders button and then add or remove. Tap to activate OK and enter. The other way of adding or removing buttons, which you might find easier, is simply to right click over the button on the ribbon, and then you can see the Add to the Quick Access Toolbar option. To activate those buttons, hit the Alt key, and you can see each button will be given a number. So Alt followed by the number, and you access the command. There are several keyboard shortcuts which avoid using the Excel ribbon. These shortcuts typically use the Control key plus a letter or a number. The function keys also have some useful shortcuts attached to them. Let's start by looking at the useful control shortcuts. Pause the session and try out these shortcuts in a blank version of Excel. See if you can match up the action to the control shortcut. Control B is to bold. Control C is copy. Control D is copy down the contents of the cell above. Control O is open file. Control P is print. Control R is copy right. Control S is save. Control U is underline. Control V is paste. Control W is close file. Control X is cut. Control Y is redo. And last but by no means least, Control Z, undo. We've also picked out some of the useful function shortcuts. Again, pause the session and see if you can match the action against the function shortcut. Try them out on a blank Excel. F1 is help. Control F1 is hide or show ribbon. F2 is to edit cell contents. F4, after you've used F2 within a cell, allows you to fix the reference to that cell by putting $signs in front of the row and column reference. As you repeatedly press F4, Excel will cycle through the alternative combinations of whether row, column, or both or none are fixed. F9 is to force a manual calculation, and F12 is save as. Cell selection can be much faster using the keyboard rather than the mouse. To select a single cell, use arrow keys. The arrow keys change your selection one row or one column at a time. To select multiple cells, hold down the Shift key whilst you use the arrow keys. And to select a block of populated cells, hold down the Control key and the Shift key simultaneously, followed by the arrow keys right and down. I'll demonstrate with an example. So, to move your selection one column at a time, right arrow, left arrow, one row at a time, down arrow, up arrow. To select multiple cells, hold down Shift and then right arrow, down arrow, up or left. To select a block of populated cells, hold down both Control and Shift together and then right arrow once, down arrow once. Other useful shortcuts are Control A to select an entire block, that's once, and that's again. Control Space to select a whole column, or Shift Space to select a whole row. And then navigating around the worksheet or the workbook, the Home key takes you to the first column in a row. Control Home is very useful because that always takes you to cell A1. Control End takes you to the last populated cell on the worksheet. Note, even if the cell is now empty, Page Down and Page Up move the screen up or down one entire page. Control Page Down or Control Page Up together move you one worksheet at a time. Finally, if we combine just Control and the arrow keys, so if I do a Control Right here, that jumps you to the end of the selection, or Control Down, Control Left, or Control Up. Useful to jump blocks of numbers. Here are the useful selection shortcuts which I demonstrated to you. And here's a summary of the navigation shortcuts. Finally, some other useful things to show you. Firstly, faster formula writing. All formulas in Excel start with an equal sign. You can then use arrow keys to select which cells you want to include in the formula and type in the operators as needed. The operators are plus, minus, divide by, multiply by, and to the power of. Press Enter when you've finished. Cross-sheet formulas in Excel can be a little bit trickier. This is where the formula involves cells on different worksheets. Start writing the formula as usual, and then to reference a cell on another worksheet, use Control Page Up or Control Page Down to move to the sheet and select the cell using the keyboard. Type the next operator followed by the next cell reference or Enter to finish. The sheet name plus an exclamation mark will be shown within the formula next to any cell references on another worksheet. And here's an example. Lastly, the Auto Sum shortcut is an extremely useful shortcut for modelers because sum is the most frequently used formula. The quickest way to write the formula is to type Alt equals. To use that shortcut, place your cell selection at the bottom of the column of numbers or to the right of a row of numbers which you want to sum, hold down Alt and press equals. Excel will show the range of numbers to sum with an animated border, also known as marching ants, and will show you the proposed formula in the formula bar. If you're happy with the suggested range, you can press Enter or use the arrow keys, potentially combined with Shift if needed, to change the selection before pressing Enter. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this session useful. Please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions.